Peace be upon you, and welcome to a new episode. Today, we're bringing you one of the most powerful stories that will make you stop for a moment and reflect on everything that's happened in your life. This is the story of Nira from Kafr El-Sheikh in Egypt, a girl who was just like any other her age, living an ordinary life. But her excessive ambition, poor decisions, and greed led her down a dark path. One that ended in a gruesome crime that shook all of Kafr El-Sheikh. I'll tell you the story from the very beginning. From the day Nira was a little girl dreaming of a life full of money and luxury, all the way to the moment that made her lose everything and drag herself and others into a massive disaster. We'll talk about Nira's life, her lover Maher, her husband Nader, the victim, and every detail that happened step by step. Get ready. And before we start our story, don't forget to like and share the episode so it can reach as many people as possible. Without diving into too much detail right now, let's jump straight into the depths of our story. Nira Mohammed Anwar was born in 1997 in a modest neighborhood in the city of Kafr El-Sheikh, an area like any other rural place in Egypt. Simple houses, narrow streets, and people living day by day. Her family was of average means. Her father, Anwar, worked a humble job, a laborer in a workshop. His income was just enough to cover the family's basic needs, food and drink, but not much room for luxury. Her mother, Fatma, was a housewife who raised Nira and her siblings, doing her best to manage the home with very limited resources. Their home was small, just 2 rooms and a living area, but it was always filled with laughter and warmth. Nira was the middle child among her siblings, a striking girl even from a young age. She always dreamed of things bigger than the neighborhood she lived in. Unlike her siblings, who were content with their simple lives, Nira wanted more. She would watch movies and TV series showing women living in palaces, wearing expensive clothes, riding luxury cars, and she'd tell herself, "I have to be like them." Since she was a child, Nira wanted to stand out. She loved dressing up in the nicest clothes. Even if they were simple, she knew how to wear them in a way that made her look stylish. Her mother would always tell her, "You have big eyes. You need to be content with what God has given you." But Nira would laugh and say, "I want to live like a queen." In school, Nira was smart, but not the kind of smart that gets high grades. She was socially intelligent. She knew how to win over teachers, how to make classmates do what she wanted. She could convince anyone, and that was her strongest weapon. She always stood out, even in middle school. People in the neighborhood would say, "That Nira girl is going to be something big," but she's aiming way too high. When Nira grew older and reached marriage age, around 18, she became even more noticed in the neighborhood. She was beautiful, classy, and anyone who saw her would say she'd make a stunning bride. Indeed, many suitors started proposing. There were decent young men, with good jobs as employees or tradesmen, but Nira turned them down one after another, not because of their looks or character. The reason was always financial. She wanted a husband with a lot of money, someone who could give her the life she dreamed of. She would tell her family, "I'm not going to marry someone like us. I want someone who will give me a rich life." Her parents tried to convince her that marriage wasn't just about money, that character and love mattered more, but Nira was stubborn. She believed money was the key to safety and happiness. Her mother always told her, "Money alone won't make you happy. There has to be love and understanding." But Nira would reply, "Money is what brings love and comfort." In 2017, Nira was 20 years old, and things hadn't changed. She kept rejecting suitors, and her family started to lose patience with her. They were worried she was missing good opportunities, and that if she kept going like this, she'd end up stuck at home with no marriage prospects. They would say to each other, "Nira's expectations are too high. If she keeps this up, she's going to ruin her own chances." Until Nader el-Sayed Hunaidi appeared. Nader was a simple man. He worked as a fisherman, but he earned good money. Fishing in Kafr El-Sheikh was a respectable source of income, and Nader was known for being skilled at his job. Not only that, he owned farmland that he rented out, meaning he had two sources of income: fishing and land rent. That land brought him steady money, since the rent came in every month without much effort. In the neighborhood, Nader was known as a respectable, calm man who worked hard and had his life in order. He had a good reputation, and everyone respected him. He was a down-to-earth guy who liked to live peacefully and treated everyone around him with respect. He had a brother named Maher, and the two were close, like any pair of brothers in the area. When Nader proposed to Nira, her family saw him as a golden opportunity, a man with money, good morals, who could give their daughter a decent life. Her father told her mother, "He's a good man, and he's got money. Nira won't regret it if she says yes." But Nira was hesitant at first, not because Nader wasn't good enough, but because she had always dreamed of something bigger. She wanted someone who was a millionaire, who would move her into a villa in Cairo, buy her a luxury car. Nader was good, but to Nira, he was ordinary. Still, after thinking it over, facing pressure from her family, and realizing that Nader really did have money and could give her a comfortable life, she agreed. She told herself, "Fine, this is better than nothing, and maybe later I'll find something even better." The wedding happened quickly. Within just 6 months, Nira and Nader got married and settled in a small house in Kafr El-Sheikh. The house was simple, but Nader furnished it well. He bought new furniture, installed a TV, built a modern kitchen. He wanted Nira to feel comfortable. The first 2 years of their marriage were like a dream. Nader loved Nira deeply and did everything he could to make her happy. All her requests were fulfilled. He bought her everything she asked for: new clothes, gold jewelry, dinners out at restaurants. Whatever Nira wanted, Nader provided. He loved seeing her happy and always told her, "I want you to live like a queen." Nira was living the life she had always dreamed of: a comfortable home, money in hand, and a husband who loved and cared for her. She would visit her family wearing her nicest outfits, talking about her life, and her mother would say, "May God keep this blessing. But be careful, life doesn't always go the way we want." During those 2 years, God blessed them with 2 children, a boy named Ahmed and a girl named Layla. Ahmed was about 1.5 years old, and Layla was a bit younger. The children were a huge source of joy for Nader. He loved them dearly and treated them like royalty. Nira was happy with her children, but she was always more focused on herself. She liked dressing the kids in nice clothes, but she spent more on herself. People in the neighborhood envied Nira for her life. They used to say, "Nira is living like a queen. Her husband treats her like a princess, and she has beautiful children." But, as we always say, life doesn't always go the way we want. With time, expenses started piling up. Having 2 kids meant a big responsibility, and Nader began to feel the pressure. Although the money from fishing and the land rent was decent, it wasn't enough to cover all of Nira's endless demands. Nira always wanted more. She would buy expensive clothes, order food from restaurants every day, and buy things for the kids that weren't really necessary, sometimes just to feel like she was living a luxurious life. She would tell Nader, "We have to live like the wealthy, not like just anybody." Nader tried to balance things, but he started feeling that the expenses were outgrowing his income. He tried to talk to Nira, telling her they needed to cut back a little on spending, but Nira would get upset. She would say, "Didn't you say you treat me like a queen? What do you mean by cutting back?" Nader loved her, so he would stay quiet and try to find a solution. To keep up with the expenses, Nader started looking for extra work. He tried to find anything that could increase his income, but in Kafr El-Sheikh, opportunities were limited. Unfortunately, Nader took the wrong path. Instead of finding honest work, he got involved in illegal trade. He started dealing in drugs and weapons because the money from that path was fast and plentiful. Nader wasn't a bad man, and he didn't want to live off haram money, but the pressure made him believe this was the only solution. He would tell himself, "I'm doing this for Nira and the kids. Once I get things in order, I'll leave this behind." But as we all know, the wrong path always leads to disaster. In 2020, the police arrested Nader in a case involving drug and weapon trafficking. The investigation lasted a while, but the evidence wasn't strong enough, so he was sentenced to only 3 years in prison. For Nader, those 3 years felt like a harsh punishment, but he was hopeful that he'd get out and start over. For Nira, that moment was a shock. She suddenly found herself alone, with 2 small children, and needed to provide for them. Nader was in prison, and the money she had grown used to was gone. At first, Nira was lost. She didn't know what to do. She cried every day, saying to herself, "What am I going to do now? How will I support the kids?" But Nira wasn't the type to give up easily. She decided to take action and prove she was tough. Nira took advantage of Nader's connections as a fisherman and started working in the fish trade. She would go to the wholesale market early in the morning to buy fish in bulk, then sell it in the local market. Every day she would wake up at dawn, put on simple clothes, head to the market, deal with the traders, negotiate prices, and return home at night exhausted but satisfied that she had managed to cover her children's expenses. Nira would leave Ahmed and Laila at her mother's while she went to the market and always made sure to come home early to spend time with them. During that first year, Nira was truly a strong woman. She worked like a man, didn't complain, and kept telling herself, "I can do this. I won't let my kids go without." People in the neighborhood started respecting her and would say, "Nira is a woman worth 1,000 men. She's supporting her household all on her own." Even her family, who used to be upset with her for rejecting so many suitors, started to feel proud of her. Her mother would say, "Nira turned out to be stronger than people who used to call her spoiled." But life wasn't going to stay that way. After a year of working in the market, Maher el-Sayed Hunaidi, Nader's brother, appeared. Maher was a well-known man in the neighborhood. People said he was generous and honorable. He worked in trade, selling and buying things like vegetables or grains, and he had a decent amount of money. Maher had always been close to Nader, and he used to help him whenever he needed anything. When Nader went to prison, Maher felt it was his duty to stand by his brother's wife and children. He came to Nira and said, "You stay at home, and I'll take care of all the expenses for the house and the kids until Nader gets out of prison." For Nira, this was an offer she couldn't refuse. It meant she'd get to rest from the tiring market work, live like she used to without having to lift a finger, and return to the comfortable life she had been used to. Of course, Nira immediately agreed. She told herself, "He's my husband's brother. He's doing this for his brother's sake. There's nothing wrong with it." At first, Maher really provided everything. He would give her money every week, and all of her and her children's needs were being met. He bought food, clothes, things for Ahmed and Laila, and made sure Nira didn't need anything. He would come to the house to make sure everything was fine, leave the money, and leave. Nira was very happy, feeling like she had returned to the luxury she had dreamed of. She would tell her friend, "See? I told you that God would provide, now I'm living without having to work. But over time, Maher's visits to the house started to increase. Instead of coming once a week, he started coming every day, sometimes twice a day. He would come to check if Nira needed anything, but started staying longer. He would talk to her, make her laugh, and try to get closer to her. Nira, instead of thinking that this was strange, was unfortunately happy. The money was coming to her, and she didn't have to move a muscle. She would tell herself, "He's my husband's brother, and he's helping me. There's nothing wrong with that." But what Nira didn't see was that Maher had other intentions. One day, while sitting with her at the house, Maher said something that shocked her. He told her, "Since I'm the one providing for the house and fulfilling all your needs, then I should also get my share." It was very clear what he wanted. He wanted to have a relationship with her, just like the one between a husband and wife. At that moment, Nira felt like the ground was shifting beneath her. She had imagined that Maher was helping her for her brother's sake, not because he wanted something from her. But when she heard his words, she realized that the help had come with a price. At this point, the woman who was supposed to be tough should have refused, created a scene, and said that this was wrong and could never happen. She should have stood up, kicked Maher out of the house, and told him, "How dare you say that? You're my husband's brother." But instead, Nira, instead of doing that, thought about the money. If she refused, she would lose the comfort, have to return to the fish market, and live in hardship again. Also, Nira feared that if she refused, Maher would stop helping her, or worse, expose her to everyone. So she chose to forget about being tough, just as Maher had forgotten his honor. She agreed to his request, and their relationship began. At first, Nira felt guilty. She would look at herself in the mirror and say, "What am I doing? This is wrong. My husband is in prison, and I'm doing this with his brother." But over time, she started to get used to it. Maher started bringing her more money, helping her with everything, and treating her like a queen. She began to feel that he wasn't just helping her, but that he loved her. This relationship wasn't just a one-time thing. No, it became ongoing, and it happened very naturally. Even when Ahmed and Laila were at the house, there was no problem. Nira and Maher acted as if they were a married couple in front of the children, and they were careful to make sure no one suspected anything. To the people outside, Maher was just her husband's brother who came to visit and help them. No one suspected anything. But the neighborhood was small, and people started to notice that Maher was visiting more often, sometimes even staying overnight. Whispers started among the neighbors, but no one had the courage to speak out loud. 2 months later, Nira found out she was pregnant. It was a huge shock to her. She called Maher to tell him, but his reaction was like a stab. He told her, "It's not my problem. You're the one who has to deal with it, and you're the one who knows who the father is." Nira couldn't believe that Maher would act this way. She thought he would stand by her, help her. But when she heard his words, she felt like she was alone in this problem. So, she decided to solve it on her own. At that time, she went to her friend and told her everything that had happened, without mentioning that Maher was the one involved. Her friend suggested that she go to a doctor to get an abortion. Nira tried and went to more than one doctor, telling them she was pregnant from a legal visit with Nader in prison, but decided to terminate the pregnancy because of financial reasons. However, the doctors were not convinced by her story, and they all refused to perform the procedure. They told her it was forbidden, haram. When Nira realized there was no solution, she let the pregnancy continue. By the 7th month, she started wearing loose clothes to hide the pregnancy. During this time, she reduced her visits to Nader in prison and then stopped them completely so he wouldn't find out anything. A few days before giving birth, Nira contacted Maher again and asked him to help her. She was scared, not knowing what she would do if people found out. Maher decided to stand by her, but in reality, he had another plan. He took her to a government hospital, and they entered so she could have a cesarean section. Nira was put under general anesthesia, and when she woke up, she asked about the baby girl she had given birth to. Maher told her that the baby was in the incubator because she was a little sick and asked her to go home, promising that he would pick up the baby in a day or two and bring her to her. But after 2 days, when Nira asked him about the baby, he told her that the baby had died in the incubator and that he had taken her body and buried her in the charity cemetery. Nira couldn't believe him. She was sure that he had either sold the baby or killed her. But in the end, it didn't matter to her. What mattered was that she had gotten rid of the problem. The relationship between Nira and Maher lasted for 5 months. During this time, Nira was lost, not knowing what to do. She tried to focus on her children, but she felt like she was drifting. She would look at Ahmed and Lila and tell herself, "I have to live for you, but I don't know how to live." Until Maher started calling her again, and they rekindled the relationship, even stronger than before. It was as if everything that had happened was not enough. They would spend long periods of time together, and Nira was careful not to get pregnant again. During this time, Nira and Maher truly fell in love with each other. They didn't know what they would do when Nader would get out of prison. Nader, Maher's brother, was really close to completing his sentence. In 2023, Nader got out of prison and returned home. But when he came back, he felt that something was wrong. People in the neighborhood were giving him strange looks. He asked people who were close to him, and they told him that Nira's behavior with Maher wasn't normal. They said that Maher was visiting the house a lot, sometimes even coming at late hours. Nader confronted Nira with this, but she made a big scene. She said, "How can you doubt me? How can you doubt your brother, who took care of us while you were in prison?" Nader wasn't convinced, but he had no proof. He spoke to Maher and heard the same thing. Maher was very upset that his brother would accuse him of something like that. The matter calmed down, and Nader returned to working on his farm as a guard. But Nira and Maher didn't give up. Their relationship continued. Nira would talk to Maher as soon as Nader would leave the house, and Maher would come and spend time with her until Nader returned. During this time, Maher told Nira that he couldn't live without her, and that she needed to ask for a divorce from Nader so that he could marry her. Nira did try to exploit the conflict with Nader and asked for a divorce. But Nader refused, not just because of the kids, but because he was sure that there was an illicit relationship between her and Maher. At this point, Nira and Maher decided to take the final step, to kill Nader. But the crime had to look natural. They planned for Nader to be killed while guarding the land at night, making it appear as if people had attacked him. Nira would send Maher updates on Nader's movements. They agreed that on a certain day, Nira would go with Nader to the land at night, and Maher would, coincidentally, pass by. Once there, Maher would act. The day arrived, and Nira went with Nader to the farmland. While they were sitting, Maher did indeed pass by. They sat for a while, and then Maher grabbed a farming hoe and struck Nader on the head. One blow was enough, but to make sure he was dead, he grabbed a brick and struck him several times on the head. Once they were sure Nader was dead, Maher changed his clothes, and each of them went back to their homes. They made sure no one had seen them. The next morning, the farmers found Nader's body and rushed to inform Nira. Nira arrived at the scene and collapsed in front of the people, as if she didn't know anything. The police arrived and began their investigations. They asked Nira about that day, and she told them that Nader had gone to work like every day and that she had been at home. But the investigations revealed other things. Some witnesses said they saw Nira with Nader at night on the land, which contradicted her statement. Other witnesses confirmed that there was an unnatural relationship between Nira and Maher. Most importantly, When the police traced Nira's movements during the months before the incident, they found hospital documents proving that Nira had been pregnant and had given birth, with Maher being with her. When the police confronted Maher, he denied everything. Nira initially tried to avoid admitting anything, but she was forced to confess. Afterward, they arrested Maher, and during the investigations, each one blamed the other. Nira said she had wronged Maher, but had no involvement in the murder. Maher said that he was the one who carried it out, but Nira was the one who planned it. In the end, after long trials, the court issued its verdict: the death penalty for Nira and Maher. This story is not just about a crime. It's a story about greed, weakness, and wrong choices. Nira could have been a truly strong woman, but she chose the wrong path. Maher could have been an honorable brother, but he chose to betray his brother. And Nader, the victim, paid the price for his trust and his choices. God protected Nira a lot, but she exhausted all her protection and paid a heavy price. What do you think about the story? Write your thoughts in the comments. That's the end of today's episode. And if this is your first time watching the channel, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to get all the latest updates. Stay tuned for the next episode. Goodbye.